You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. This is the second hour, the hour about guns. I always say, it's a great experience to be on the show, even for me as a host, because what I like on the show, I have the opportunity to meet great people, learn a lot from different people, because, after all, you're never going to know everything. It's an experience. And a few years ago, exactly a couple years ago, when I was testing the Don't Tread on Us rifle, the Freedom rifle, it came out to my attention the chamber, or at least the caliber, 223 Wylde. Let's see if I spell it out right. Wylde. And I had no idea. It was an accident, honestly. I was working with different manufacturing companies, and I was trying to find the right caliber. My original idea was to create a rifle, of course, with military specifications in 5.56 NATO. And I wanted to be able to shoot, of course, 5.56 and also 223 Remington. And I thought that pretty much 5.56 would be a hit. By accident, I came out with this 223 Wylde that I realized, of course, you can shoot 5.56 NATO and also 223 Remington. And I was trying to figure it out, the advantages. And there are some advantages, in my opinion. But I want to bring on today on the show a friend that I've been knowing for many years here in Mojave County, and also he's really somebody who's really passionate about guns and the Second Amendment, and he loves also to try to learn and to reload and to learn about chambering and different things when it comes down to ballistics. It's a lot of knowledge, and that's why I like to bring him on the show. And I would like to talk with him and about the 223 Wylde and the 5.56 NATO, and of course the differences and what are the benefits, if any. His name is my friend directly from Kingman. And his name is Greg. Greg from Kingman. Are you there?
I'm doing pretty good, Luke. It's good hearing from you again.
Yes, my brain is frying. 120 degrees out here. My air conditioning, is kind of fuming. I'm trying to keep it together. But listen to me. I know you're busy and you have to go somewhere today. But let's talk about exactly the chambers and the calibers of 5.56 NATO, 223 Remington, and of course, the opportunity to have a compromise, or at least something you can shoot both with the 223 Wylde. Let's start first of all. What is the 223 Wylde? Any knowledge about that? Anything that you can tell me about that?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of money on some other guns before it was really as well known, or before I really got to appreciate it. 223 Wylde is kind of the best of both worlds. If you take a regular 223, which is actually a 224 diameter bullet, if you measure the throat, they go about 224. The 5.56 is 224.6, I believe. Mm-hmm. So it's looser. Mm. And that's they run higher pressure. And they got a longer throat. And it's to keep the pressure down. You're going to find, I think, 223 is about 55,000 PSA and about 60,000 for the 5.56. Well, along comes the Wylde. What they did is they kept kind of the best of both worlds. They went with a chamber 2242, just slightly looser than 223, so you maintain the accuracy and you get a slightly longer throw. So actually, you'll see the difference in accuracy between the 5.56 and the 223. Most match rifles are going to want the 223. But the Wylde, now you can safely handle both, because I was shooting one here a while back that was 223, and it's in a heavy barrel AR upper. And I started getting a little bit of signs of pressure. It was a 223 chamber, and I said, "What crap?" And I'm shooting some actually it was Barnes Precision match. You make an 85 grain open tip match. And I actually shot a nice 5-shot group, and I says, I'm going to back off. It just didn't feel quite right. You can get some signs of pressure. If I'd had that 223 Wylde, which was not available when I bought that particular upper, I would have had the best of both worlds. I would have maintained this accuracy and could have safely shot it, because everybody's so happy nowadays. So if they say that 223 Wylde chamber is safe for 5.56, it is, because nobody wants to get in trouble.
No, I understand. This is interesting because, even without knowing all this data that you have, in my humble experience, what I learned first of all, shooting the AR-15 platform, especially with the Don't Tread on Us, when I said to compare the 5.56 NATO with the 223 Wylde, first of all, I was shooting just for testing the rifle, let's say average 223 Remington steel case, Wolf or Brown Bear. Something that I noticed that normally when I was shooting it with a 5.56, barrel and chamber, they started to get stuck. Then, by coincidence, I started to notice that I didn't have the problem with 223 Wylde. So I was kind of impressed. I said, wow, must be something different way that there somehow the cartridge fits, and stays inside the, there, and is able to get extracted better. That's one thing. What do you think? Is it just a coincidence, or maybe there is something going on why, 223 Wylde chamber somehow seems like do not have the same problems normally that you have when you start to shooting a lot of, let's say, steel case 223 like the Wolf or the Brown Bear? What do you think?
Well, I think I run into some of the same problem. I had an early AR-15, and it had the regular 223 chamber. That's really what they first came out. At least that's what it's marked. And I started having some trouble with the cheaper ammo. But I ended up going to a hand load, and to kind of alleviate that problem. And I don't know why the Wylde chamber would be better than the 5.56 as far as dependability and reliability with the cheap ammo. But the fact that it'll do it, and the 223 chamber that I shot it in definitely would not do it. In other words, I ran into some problems with it. And so that 223 Wylde, that's, if I was going to build my dream rifle, it would have that chamber. And I personally like a 1 in 8 tryst. So that was going to be the best of both worlds.
Yes. And let's explain a little bit a couple of things. First of all, so I like to reach out everybody, especially people that were new. And I want to be sure that they have at least some information out there. So let's say you buy a 223 Remington rifle, like an AR-15, for example, okay? And you see there on the barrel, 223 Remington. That's very important to be aware, because you should not be able to shoot a 5.56 NATO, because the pressure is different. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, and the NATO round runs at higher pressure.
Yeah.
And also the throat chamber is a little longer, and this is off the top of my head, so if I get it slightly off, I think the 223 is maybe a .02, and the other one's a .06 or .07.
Mm-hmm.
So that also adds to the higher pressure. Now, what would be the advantage if you're shooting a bolt-action match rifle and you're competing against the people that are trying to put like 5 shots into a quarter inch? Then that 223 chamber, and you're not going to worry about pressure because you'll usually hand load.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be a disadvantage. But I defy most anybody that I know to tell the difference as far as accuracy in an AR-15. Between the 223 and the 223 Wylde. Yeah,
no, honestly, for me, as I said, first of all, a safety issue, I would like to be, I don't want to call the word advising, but at least let people know that, if you buy 223 Remington chamber, be careful. You cannot just shoot now 5.56 NATO, because that's a different type of pressure. And of course, even it's very little minimum, is still the way there is difference in the sizing. So number one, I would advise or to look in, if you want to shoot both, buy 5.56 NATO chamber. Oh, as you said, for me too, now it's my favorite chamber. It's my favorite barrel, 223 Wylde. You got best of the both world. And another thing about, let's talk a little bit about twist ratio. For many people it looks like, what is that? I mean, what are you talking about? And I try, as I said, I like to give the basics to everybody. For example, the average 5.56 NATO that you see in the M4 carabine rifles, I see normally they are between like 1.7 and 1.8. Am I right? I mean, as a twist ratio. What is exactly a twist ratio, first of all? Can you explain it?
Well, the 1 in 7 twist means for every 7 inches that the bullet travels, it does one complete revolution. Mm-hmm. And that's a very tight twist. In the military, for the most part, that's what they use. And here's what's really funny, is that everybody thinks it's for all the military ammo, And the way I understand about the only thing you really need that 1 and 7 twist for would be like the tracer rounds, which run between 63 and 64 grains off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's the funny thing. Even with the 1 and 7 twist, that's what it was mostly for, because you don't need it for that 62 grain 855, M855. The funny thing about the tracer, now you're getting out there, and I haven't shot a lot of them, and anybody listening, don't go out and try this now with this fire season on.
Mm-hmm.
I never got that great of groups out of any of the tracers, out of any of the rounds. If you're getting, say, a 3 to 4 minute angle with the 1 and 7 twist and the tracer,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of defeats the purpose if you're shooting it way out there at 800 or 900 yards and you're trying to figure out where the bullets are coming in. But anyhow, so there's one other thing with a 1 and 7 will come for, and that's some of the specialty bullets like a 70 grain GMX, which would be like a heavy hunting type bullet. It likes a 1 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
But for the normal person, with those couple of exceptions, other than you just want something that, is a military type setup, I personally think the 1 and 8 twist is about the king of the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe most people are going to find a 1 and 9 handles just about everything.
Yeah, and that's normally, just to let you know, my little experience testing the different type of grains. When we came out with the final barrel and chamber for the Don't Tread on Us, we came out with the 223 Wylde twist ratio 1:9. That I like.
Right.
It. At least was pretty, almost everything you can shoot through that. It's pretty stable. Question: normally, when you shoot like a 1.8, the typical 5.56 NATO, what type of grains we're talking about to be, let's say, optimal, or at least ideal for the 5.56? 55 grains or 62 grains? What do you look at? Or both?
Well, it don't always come down to the weight of bullets because they're not all shaped the same and not all of them have the same ballistic coefficient.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The two that come to my mind right now, and it's one of my favorites, is a 75 grain AMAX. Hornady makes it. And I hand load it, and I get, and I'm not going to tell the load on the thing because I only be using it. It's a charge of Winchester powder. I get about 2,800 foot per second out of that 24-inch barrel.
Wow.
But the rest of the story is that's a 1 and 8 twist, the 75 grain hollow point boat tail match, which has a slightly lower ballistic coefficient. It doesn't need a 1 and 8; it'll do a 1 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
The one I'm talking about, I have to single load. That 75 grain AMAX, unless you're single loading and you're shooting beyond 600 yards, and you don't mind a single shot AR-15, the 1 and 9 twist will do just fine.
Mm-hmm.
The 75 grain hollow point boat tail Hornady bullet, you can load it to, it's off the top of my head, I think it's 2.250, which means it will fit in your AR-15 magazine, and so you shouldn't have any problems, with overall length.
I see.
Yeah.
And, as you see, there is so many components. I mean, yeah, people think it just because it fits in the magazine, it's an AR-15, they're all the same. There are so many different things, characteristics, and also purposes. Depends on what you're doing. Are you doing long distance shooting? Are you doing, combat, let's say, close encounter shooting? Let's talk a little bit about the general idea of the 5.56 NATO, because sometimes, there's been a lot of debate. There is a lot of being talking down about these rounds. And the more I know these rounds, as I said, I understand why it was built or was created. I mean, this is not like there is not like a rifle that does it all, but there is a purpose for every rifle, and there are some pro and don'ts in every caliber, of course. Let's see. Tell me a little bit, first of all, what do you think about the 5.56 NATO, the original purpose, and what are the benefits, and what are also the don'ts as a round for self-defense?
Well, we're not restricted by the NATO rules, and this is based on what I understand. The original load was a 55 grain full metal jacket boat tail. It was about 3,200 foot per second, which is pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the military was somewhat restricted. initially they tried like a 1 in 14 twist, which it was meant to destabilize. And what they found out is in cold weather that wasn't quite sharp enough, so they went to a 1 in 12. The real early AR-15, some of them were 1 in 12 twist, and they shoot a 55 grain bullet really great and accurate. Some of them were pretty accurate. But we're not really restricted. A lot of people, this tumble idea and all, it actually goes sideways and it breaks into usually 3 pieces at the cantilever and at the tip. We're not really restricted for that. I mean, and actually for self-defense or for hunting, I'm not sure that I would recommend it anymore. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, they used it in Vietnam, but I think I would prefer, like a good TSX type bullet or one of the something along that line. Superformance Hornady makes some pretty good stuff too.
What I was looking at, from my little experience, at least testing and looking around and also studying a little bit. For example, let's say home defense situation, okay? That there are some limitations, especially if you live in an urban environment. You need to look at over penetration. You need to look at different things. The original idea of the 5.56 was, at least for what we understand, was for flesh. Wasn't for objects. It wasn't going to destroy things. It was to incapacitate enemy combatants. That's the idea, because it's very, very fast, and even, of course, the bullet, it's light, especially when it tumbles and it starts to, let's say, create almost a sharpnel effects, is devastating on the tissues. So that part is good. The low recoil is really good too. Can be handled pretty much by everybody. The fact that it normally does not over-penetrate, I believe that's also a lot of benefits, because, even if you shoot, let's say, 9mm slug in a typical apartment with a regular dry walls, that 9mm slugs will go through walls and can be very dangerous for liability. I noticed that I watched different videos. I was testing also 5.56, 55 and 62 grains between dry walls is much more, let's say, safe compared to other bullets. And of course, forget about the shotgun. Of course, it's a 62 or 55 grains, but I noticed when you start to have 30 rounds of that type of speed in your, let's say, home rifle, I believe that especially at close distances, between 0 and 200 yards, I still believe you have a lot of, let's say, potential to completely incapacitate the, let's say, the aggressor. What do you think?
Well, let's see, on the first subject, I was kind of amazed when I found out that even though an AR-15 is actually a high-powered rifle, is that it wouldn't do as many layers of drywall as like a 9mm. And it's not just ball. Usually the hollow point will plug up, and you end up out penetrating, let's say, like layers of drywall. The kinetic energy is about triple in the AR-15 or the 5.56.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 100 or 200 yards. Man, I think in the hands of somebody a little bit skilled, that thing is pretty lethal at 600 yards.
Oh, yeah. No, this is for sure. But, as I said, I'm not talking about accuracy. I'm talking about, still keeping the potential, kinetic energy to, let's say, incapacitate the I mean, at least I think even at 300 yards, when you start to get hit by a 62 grains bullet at such a high speed, it's still devastating, especially if you got the right point. But, closer you are, of course, more you keep the energy. And I believe the optimus probably will be from 0 and 300 yards. And I'm thinking about now, to somehow create classes to really start to specify and be specialized in home defense rifle using the AR-15, because I really was looking at the different benefits. As I said, it's a rifle everybody can shoot. It's a low recoil. You have, even just with one magazine, you got at least 30 rounds, especially if you live in the states like Arizona, that you have no problem with these restrictions. And then, of course, you don't worry so much about over-penetration. And at the same time, it's accurate, much more accurate, of course, the handgun, much more firepower, of course, than a shotgun, and all the benefits. And also, I still believe there is enough especially, let's say in a household, you are like 10, 15 feet, maybe 20 yards if you have a big home with a big hall. I mean, that would be enough firepower to create, I think, a good tool for home defense if well used, But yes, what do you think?
Yes. Well, it's a funny thing. You talk about that 62 grain penetrator load, and it's my understanding, particularly out of the military M4, which is 14.5-inch barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're pretty close, it slows down a little bit. It don't start out quite as fast as we have to have 16 inches.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that it's a little bit too stable. I have read, I wasn't there, but I've heard from other people that you start getting out longer shots, particularly the 62 grain. It ice picks. It don't tumble. It don't break apart. It just kind of puts 22 caliber holes straight on through.
Yes.
I can't verify it. I haven't done it, but the place I think the 62 grain penetrator, one would be body armor, and two would be like if you have to stop a vehicle.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. That's what it's designed best for. As far as which one, and it's funny thing is sometimes something that you think's a penetrator might penetrate different under different set of circumstances. Through ballistic gelatin or something like that, i.e., what am I defending myself against? And I'm not so sure that a good, well-designed bullet expanding, because we're not restricted, and I think you're going to find they actually out-penetrate in a lot of different things. Everybody knows that they got some tap-type loads. Well, the police get something that we can't buy, and it's called tap barrier. And it's a 60 grain, and it's a copper bullet, and it's more or less like a TSX, but it's the reason they call it tap barrier. It is designed to shoot through your windshield and still take the bad guy out, or through a door or a barrier or 1 inch of plywood.
Wow!
And it actually does a little bit. It actually does better and more lethal when it does connect on the other side than a lot of the military stuff.
Interesting.
But the military is restricted. Just because they use it, it might not necessarily be the best home defense load.
Yeah. I was thinking, Greg, about...
And I hope I don't have to find out for real. But
yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. But I agree with you. I heard a lot of information, at least reading also, the latest few years in Afghanistan, when they upgraded, to the 62 grains, especially the green tip, okay? Yeah. Technically, as you say, is a penetrator. It doesn't have anymore that tumbling effect, of course, and especially when you use the shorter barrels, okay? I mean, unless you use the 20 inches barrel, every time you go under 16 inches, you start to lose speed. It's normal. So the point is, it's almost like zipping through. On flash, for what I read, different also researchers, also from different studies from the military, let's say there are some official records from Vietnam that they were somehow kept secret for a while because they were afraid that especially the 55 grains was so devastating as concept, they would probably, condemn them under the Geneva Convention. So I see that on flash, the 55 grains as the best opportunity to have higher speed, of course, and also to tumble and create a sort of a devastating effect on tissues. Differently, the 62 grains normally is something that it seemed like to zip through, and that's why also they were complaining that they could not stop, the threat after even they shot him several times, especially if you got somebody like, is pretty dedicated opponent, maybe he's on drugs or adrenaline, and if you don't hit at the right spot, it's after all, it's a 62 grain, and more important, is a 220. I mean, it's a 22 caliber on steroids, and the hole is pretty small. So that's why it doesn't create that much of a devastating effect if it does not tumble. So I think probably you're right. I honestly, for home defense, if I didn't have to spend the right, type of caliber, special ammunition, I would go with 55 grains. What do you think?
Well, I think if I was restricted to the military stuff, I think the M193 ball, it's faster. I think you get around 3,200 plus foot per second out of even a 20-inch barrel, and that is smoking fast.
Wow!
And what it does, it turns sideways in a short distance in flesh, and it breaks off, the way I understand it, the cannular and the tip.
Wow. That's
Now,
interesting.
this hydrostatic shock effect, which Wylde coined originally, and I believe we found out pros and cons on it, but there is some things that you can kind of verify. I find this kind of interesting, and you can test it yourself. And I haven't done this for 20 years, but you take a couple water jugs. Now, I know that the body's mostly water, and shooting water jugs is not official and gelatin and all that. But you put a couple of them out there at 100 yards. You shoot with that 55 grain M193, and it'll pretty much blow that jug apart. Now, right beside of it, take a 30-yard 6 and use your typical military ball. Heck, use an armor-piercing ball, I care. And I think you're going to find that the actual traumatic effect on that jug of water is a lot less. Sometimes you can barely even tell you hit it, jump a little bit, and it'll leak out.
Wow.
And so, which means it's not necessarily transferring the energy.
Yeah.
And the M193 is hitting and tumbling and doing something, and it's transferring the energy into the water.
Yeah. And we are made mostly of water. Our body is made mostly of water, at least, soft tissues, that's a fact. I watched a video similar like that. You can still find it on YouTube. It's about, testing 9 millimeters and 45 hollow point. And the factor, the speed factor, that of course 9 millimeters is much faster than the normally slow round like the 45. The same watermelon we were talking about, with a 9 millimeter, would completely explode. Devastating effect. The hollow point completely opens and creates all the type of trauma. And there is nothing left of the watermelon. And people say, they always put down the 9 millimeters. At least most of the people, they think that 9 millimeters is inferior. Then you see the same type of watermelon with a 45 hollow point, and there is just a beautiful hole. Nothing wrong with that. But the idea that there is no more that type of kinetic energy devastating, created that completely the devastation that normally you have with the usual 9 millimeters. So I think the speed is very important when we have to choose also an ammunition for self-defense, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a combination of the speed and also the bullet constructions in my lifetime has just so vastly improved. But I would lean back on something. I got a personal friend that's a doctor, and he's back in Texas now, but he's done a lot of trauma, and he's seen a lot of bullet wounds. And he and all of his doctor friends, and they have discussed this. And based on what he told me, and I think I've read it other places, but I heard it from the doctor's lips, is that generally speaking, they cannot tell the difference what bullet passed through an organ by the tissue damage between a 9 millimeter, a 40, or a 45.
Wow.
Now, if you're shooting a 9 millimeter ball and you're shooting a 45 with that HydroShock, which is used to be one of the top performers, I'm not sure if there's probably better stuff now. You could change all that, but it's funny. I've even seen some tests, and this is going back 20 or 30 years ago, where they actual studies. There was not as much killing difference between a 9 millimeter and a 45, even when the full metal jacket edge goes to the 45.
Wow.
But this new improved technology they have, the 9 millimeter of today with a good hollow point, a good expanding, it's far superior to the old 45 ball. I mean, it's a significant step up in effectiveness. And we used to think that was kind of, king of the hill.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There's no slouch.
And I tell you, there are some ammunition I found, for example, the Liberty ammunition I test them. They're very light. I think it's like 50 grains, I guess. They go for about 2,000 feet per second. I mean, super fast. And they go through Type 3A soft tissue, soft body armors, and even some hard body armors. I mean, they are amazingly devastating. And the recoil is very little compared to other calibers. I mean, there is so much technology, as you said, that we need to stop thinking about 9 millimeters from World War II. Okay, this is
right.
A completely different story. But at the end, of course, as I always say, we are the weapon. Of course, it's always better to have the best you can get, the best caliber and the best gun. By the end of the day, marksmanship and mindset are the real also factors that makes the difference. You can have the best gun you want, you can have the best caliber, the best ammunition, but if you don't have marksmanship, you don't know where to hit, and more important, you don't have the combat mindset that you are dedicated and you do what you have to do to defend your life, doesn't matter anymore. Listen, I really appreciate your knowledge, your experience, also your friendship. I always enjoy talking with you, and I want to give you the floor like I do with all my guests. 60 seconds, whatever you want to say about anything, you got the floor.
Well, thank you, Luke. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk. I didn't have a prepared minute. One of the things you just now pointed out, that's 50 grain high velocity. I believe it's civic. Anyhow, so I'm familiar with it. I wouldn't mind trying that out. I did read a story once where the guy was testing on a dummy, and it went through a car door, through the dummy, and out the other. And this is an old expert, and he says, I may have to re-examine everything I thought I knew about self-defense slugs. So maybe in the future sometime, maybe we'll try some of that out, because I got a question mark behind some of this also.
Yeah, me too. I want to test them more. I mean, I have some of them, and let's go to the range and let's test them out in different scenarios, okay?
That sounds like a good plan to me. We'll have to get together sometime soon.
Very good. All right, Lista. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much. And listening, guys, this is Luca Zanna. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Luca Zanna. I'm sorry, my brain is overheating today. It's 1:20 around where I am right now here. But let's give me a few seconds break, and then we'll come back, and we're closing this hour, okay? You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna.
Awaken the warrior in you with Scotty. The new AR-15 rifle by Zanna Enterprises, LLC. I am Scotty. Norse goddess of winter, hunting, and just revenge. I am Scotty. I am chambered in 223 Wylde and can shoot 556 NATO and 223 Remington. My trigger is crisp and fast, an average of 4 pounds out of the box. Call me a fast girl. I can shoot over 5 rounds in 1 second. But I'm focused too. With only iron sights and no bench, I can hit 1 square inch at 25 yards. I bow down to no one. I'm independent. I am fierce. I am a warrior. I am Scotty. The new AR-15 rifle by Zanna Enterprises, LLC. Find me at www.ar15shop.us.
Okay. This is the end of the second hour. That was the little audio commercial of Scotty. The new AR-15 rifle package from Zanna Enterprises, LLC. Why rifle package? Because you get the upper, then you get the lower, and you put it all together. It's an incredible deal. And please go to www.ar15, AR, number 1, number 5, 15, of course, shop.us, AR15shop.us. You can find it. It's amazing. I'm very impressed. I love the idea. First of all, it's a great rifle, and it's made in the USA, of course. And just check it out. It's worth the value. It's incredible. And there is also a personality. It is not just a rifle. There is a personality. Awaken the warrior in you. And we need to wake up our, let's say, primordial, good side. But when I say the warrior, I don't mean go out and beat up everybody. No, I just say stand up for what is right. Stand up for free humanity. Stand up for your freedom. Stand up for your sovereignty. Stand up for your family. Stand up for good. That's the bottom line. When you see evil squirming around you, don't just bow down. Don't put your head between your legs. Stand up. We need to stand up together as humanity. I always say, violence is the last thing we want to do. But at the same time, we always must have a plan. Because evil doesn't care that you are disarmed. It doesn't play fair. It will do whatever it can to submit you, to put you in fear, to put you in pain, to put you in misery, to put you in bondage. That's the bottom line. That's why I believe free humanity, one thing we should have in common as a free human beings is the right to be armed. Unfortunately, I understand. My fellow brothers from many other parts and sisters from other parts of the world don't have that right. Don't have the Second Amendment right like we have in America. But I pray that, one day they will get it too. Meanwhile, my mission here in the USA as a gun manufacturer is to sell and to arm as many law-abiding Americans as possible. You know, the prices, they are great. They're the best prices I can offer. I mean, you will see the special. Go to ar15shop.us, look at the blog. There are special prices that you can never find these in retail stores. But guess what? My goal is not just, to sell stuff. No, my goal is to arm as many as law-abiding Americans as possible, because we need good people armed. Now, do not go away. Ready for our number 3. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. Ciao.